So here we are 12 hours later and we have ourselves some ripe starter. Just wanted to show you guys how it looks before I get started. So the recipe I'm going to be using today is from King Arthur. It's called pain au levain, which really means sourdough in French. It's a French style sourdough recipe. We're going to have 600 grams of all-purpose flour, 85 grams of whole wheat flour, and 397 grams of water at room temperature, and 454 grams of starter, ripe starter. We do have salt in the recipe, but we're going to mix that later on. So we'll get started with that. I'm just gonna add the water. I'm just gonna add the flour. With clean hands, we're just gonna mix it till it's incorporated. This is definitely the fun part. It's gonna be very sticky, but that's okay. That's how it's gonna be. And it helps to have a dough scraper just to kind of scrape as needed. So we let the dough rest for about 20 to 30 minutes. I'm going to now add the salt, and I'm going to mix it initially in the bowl, and then I'm going to dump it on the counter and continue to mix it. So the dough is going to be very sticky, and we're not going to be kneading this with any added flour. We're just going to knead it by hand. There's several ways to know when we're done with the kneading process. We can do the window pane test, which I'll show you how that is in a bit. And we could also take the internal temperature of the dough, which should be about 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a fun part for me. Just get right into it. You can certainly do this in the mixer. I personally like to do it by hand. Kneading by hand is fun. Show you what the window pane test looks like. So we're gonna stretch out the dough, and if it starts to rip, it's not ready. So we're gonna keep going. This can take anywhere between 10 to 15, even 20 minutes. It all depends on how hard you knead this dough, how strong you are, I guess. We're doing the window pane test, and I could see some white. So it is ready. Just gonna form it into a nice ball. It's nice and smooth. We did not add any flour to this. Really nice and smooth. So we're gonna take the internal temperature of the dough, and it is 75. So it's good to go. So I have a clean, lightly greased container here, and I'm going to put our dough that's nice and smooth in here. And we're gonna cover it with a damp kitchen towel. We're gonna let this rest for an hour. So we've let the dough rise for an hour now. Look how much it grew. So we're going to fold it now, but we're gonna need to do that on a lightly floured work surface, clean work surface, I should mention. And I'm just going to just dump this dough. Doesn't want to come down. Just give it a shake. Okay. So we're going to gently pat it down, and we're going to fold and turn it around, and then fold again, and then just pick it all up like so. We're gonna put it back into the container. Now we're gonna let it rise covered for another hour. So after we've let the dough rise for another hour after folding it, I divided it into 2 portions. I'm gonna cover this and let it rest for 20 minutes before we form them into balls, placing them into our proofing baskets. You can certainly keep it as 1 piece, but I like to have 2. So it's been 20 minutes and now it's time to shape these doughs into boule, known as ball in French. So we're gonna try our best not to use any more flour, and I'm in no way a professional at this. I'm still learning, still perfecting the art of shaping. But what we're trying to do is trying to make a tight ball here, and I'm just kind of dragging the dough onto the surface and tucking it as I do it. So we're just trying to create a tight skin and sealing the bottom. Seems like it's been achieved. I'm just going to do the same to the other one. So here I have 2 proofing baskets, one with a linen cover and the other without, because I want to achieve this design. I'll show you what I mean when I unmold the dough. So I'm just gonna flour this generously, and we're just gonna put this seam side down. And we're going to cover again and let proof for 2 hours. We've allowed our dough to proof in the proofing baskets for 2 hours. So we're going to invert these onto parchment paper, which I have there. It makes it easier to handle. And then I'm just going to dust some flour on my hand before touching the dough carefully. Voila. And so this was the design that I was referring to. I'll show you in a bit. Perfect. So this is the fun part. We're going to use a lame, which means blade in French. I don't know if I'm going to do any interesting designs for you today, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think for this one, I'm just going to slash it kind of like a S shape down the middle, and then just one right beside it, just straight line across. You want it to be a deep cut. So I'm going to be baking the sourdough breads in these cast iron pots. I have a Le Creuset 5.25 quarts, and then I have a Kuckuckstaub in a 5 quart. I have one that's slightly bigger. This loaf is slightly bigger, so I'm going to place this one in the Le Creuset and then this one in the Staub. I'm going to carefully place this. I'm just going to lift it using the parchment. That's why it's important to place it in the parchment beforehand. I'm going to just try to straighten out the parchment. I don't like when it kind of folds into the dough. It's not a big deal, but I don't like how it looks after it's baked. Okay, so this is ready to go, and then we'll place this one in here. Again, using the parchment to handle the dough. Perfect. So this is just one of the many ways you can bake your sourdough breads. I decided that this is the most convenient for me. I do have these cast iron pots, and it is something that I heavily rely on when I'm making my sourdough breads. You can, the idea is that you want to create some sort of steam, so you definitely can bake these loaves on a baking sheet and just simply put them in your oven. You just need to find another way to create that steam. You can do that by putting in a hot skillet in the oven and then adding some ice cubes as soon as you put in your loaves, so that can create that steam for you. So I'm going to put these in the oven with the lid on for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to remove the lids just to get that golden color on the loaves. Look at that. Yes. It's exactly what we want. Now with the second one, be careful. Yum. And this, my friends, is the moment we've been waiting for. Isn't this all worth it at the end? Look at this. So I'm cutting into this way too early, but I can't resist. We've got some air pockets. I'm gonna taste it. I hope you make it and enjoy.